Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justice, and today we're going to be jumping back into the Ring franchise with 2005's The Ring 2, even though past me may or may not have said that I was never going to cover that. Because I really don't want to rewatch that movie. I didn't like it, so if you guys remember, let me know. Yeah, that did not age well. I should have known that I'm a completionist. But of course, this sequel was going to happen after the success of the first Ring in 2002. Samara had become a full-blown icon with her birth over in Japan, and then her bold entrance into the US. She had become a bona fide horror icon from the moment that she crawled out of that damn TV. In this entry, both Naomi Watts and David Dorfman returned to reprise their characters, Rachel and Aiden, the mother-son duo from the first film, and this film picks up with the events of the last film, but unlike in the first movie, instead of the whole watch this tape and 7 days later you die, you get a very typical possession kind of story. The possession plot being a kind of odd one, with Samara wanting to possess Aiden because she wants Rachel to be her mom, but okay. It's a strange follow-up for sure, and I am still not entirely sure how I feel about this whole damn movie. Like, I love the fact that we get more backstory to Samara and why she is what she is and the evil that she is, but I am not really a fan of how they handle most of the horror in this film. At many times it feels very whimsical, even bordering on like a Grimm's fairy tale, which I understand that Grimm's fairy tales become Disney movies, so if I'm implying that this movie makes Samara kind of a Disney princess, then like, so be it, I guess. And you'll see. The movie opens with horror alum Ryan Merriman, and also, side note, Mary Elizabeth Winstead pops up also later on in the movie as Samara's mother in a blink and you miss it role. And the only reason I'm mentioning this is because the two of them would get to star as leads in the next Final Destination movie in 2006. So at least they were able to get a meatier role than what they were handed in this film. The opening scene is exactly what you'd expect to get from a Ring sequel. You have Ryan's character in a living room with another teenage girl, and he is trying to pass the curse on to her because of the events of the last movie, where we discovered that if you show someone else the tape, you won't die. But he ultimately fails, and one thing that I noticed while watching it that really cracked me up was right before he dies, the music cue sounds so similar to a Game Over in the Saw franchise. Like, I could just imagine John Kramer just slamming the door during that scene. It kind of caught me off guard, took me out for a second, and had me laughing. Mind you, I did not edit that music choice there. That is the music that is in the actual film, if that furthers my point. But this is really the only scene in the movie that feels like that first movie and comes the closest to the atmosphere of the first film. From this point on, the movie decides to go off the rails and do whatever the hell it wants, because the writers wanted to do something different in this entry. They wanted to get the whole cursed tape, watch it and die aspect done right at the beginning just to get it over with. They wanted to try something different, and it is very much a gambit that in the long run I don't think paid off in this entry at all. Another thing that I wanted to mention that I discovered while doing some research on this film, there is a prequel short film that they released on the DVD release called Rings, not to be confused with The Rings 2017, but the reason I'm mentioning it is because this prequel acts as more backstory for Ryan's character and how he ended up watching the tape and the events leading up to the eventual opening scene of this film. And I very much actually enjoyed this short. I thought they did a good job on it, and it captured the energy of the first film so well. One thing that I immediately noticed while watching it is it had the original color grading, and if you saw my first review on The Ring, I talked smack about that color grading, but I didn't realize like how naked this second movie looked without it until I saw the short film that had it, because they kept that choice for the short but not the whole movie. It felt so much more in tone and in the same world as that first Ring movie, versus the second movie just feels so different. And that's one thing that I think pulled me out of it anyways, because not only did you have a completely different type of story that was trying to do something different, but the visuals were the same either, so it just felt very much removed. But in this short film, you have Ryan's character, who is introduced to the tape by a group of all these teenagers who are essentially watching the tape and treating it like a form of tripping, with like all the weird stuff that happens when you watch it, when you see like your face warp and like all the weird visions that you get. It becomes like a drug to them, essentially a drug that I don't think the DARE program could have ever planned to fight against. Ryan watches the tape though in this short, and he tries to make it as close to the 7-day mark as he can and make it farther than anyone else. During this, some of the visuals and scares that you get, yes, they're very cheap, because I'm imagining this short did not have a ton of money thrown its way, but some of the scares in this I think were way better and superior to stuff that you see in the actual movie. Like there's one scare in particular where Ryan sees Samara crawl out of the TV and he panics and tries to catch it on video. And as he's doing it, Samara reaches her hand out towards him, and it is a really cool jump scare, and it didn't look the best, but I loved the concept behind it, and I wish there was more stuff like that in this movie, because a lot of the stuff that we get in this entry, like I said a second ago, feels extremely fantastical. This plot picks up at the beginning of the movie with Rachel finding this tape that's getting passed around, but unfortunately any ideas with all these teenagers using this has been essentially dropped to the wayside and forgotten to do the choices that it did, so it ends up being rather pointless. After Rachel sees Ryan's body, she tracks down the tape and burns it to try to vanquish the curse. During this too, you see her trying to be a better mother to Aiden. She starts to see all these little inklings and hints that the curse is still lingering and is somehow latched to Aiden, who is slowly becoming possessed by Samara. There are some genuinely good scenes in this movie. There are some shots I enjoy. You see a lot of these like landscape shots, overhead shots of cars driving down the road. I think they're very, very pretty, and I think a lot of that has to come from Hideo Nakata, which I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. He directed the original Japanese film Ringu, and they brought him on for this entry, and I do think that there is some stuff in this that he does very well, but the overall execution of a lot of it I don't think was done exactly the best, as I've already said a million times. But there are some good scares in this film. One that comes to mind specifically that I really enjoyed was Aiden has this nightmare where he's in the living room and all this water starts like seeping out of the couch and like lingering towards him, and then Samara bursts out of the TV and starts trying to pull him in. Like the effects look a little bit wonky because yes, it's CG. This movie is riddled with bad CGI actually, but it still is a really fun scene. But in the same breath too, if we're going to talk about bad CGI, I feel like I have to mention the scene of the deer, because everybody knows that scene, and I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but yes, they don't look good. I'm not gonna sit here and say that they look good, but like, I really don't think they're as bad as people make them out to be. In fact, I have seen superhero movies in recent years that have way worse CGI than anything in that scene. Yes, it's not the best, but like I can give a pass to a 20-year-old horror movie for having some wonky CG. Just one thing though that I do think is kind of funny about it is that they decided to do CGI because they weren't able to use actual deers because apparently they're harder to train. And they talked about like all these ways on the behind the scenes for how they made it look more realistic and this, that, and the other. And like they did not succeed, which I think is hilarious because they were so confident and cocky, which I understand. If I did all that work, I'd feel pretty damn confident in myself too and like happy with what I did. And then when you get that grade back from everybody else being like, oh, damn, I overestimated myself. Speaking of the deer attack, like I mentioned earlier, this entire entry just feels way more fantastical to me because like the deer attack, you also have another scene where the water's floating up out of the bathtub. You have another scene where this tree is like burning and etching itself into the wall. It just feels very much like a fairy tale rather than a sequel to The Ring. I don't mind a horror movie taking a fantastical approach to the horror by any means at all, actually, but I just don't think that tone really works here at all for a Ring film because it's just too far removed from what the original movie was with like its tone and themes. I think it takes away a lot of the fear factor of it, and it's kind of a gut punch to the movie because it just makes everything kind of just drag along and you don't really care what's happening, and like it just feels out of place in the franchise. That original film was genuinely scary, and I do think there are scenes in that have aged so well, but this one you can't say the same about it because it's riddled with over-the-top CGI, and they took away what made Samara scary in the first place. Instead of having this cursed videotape roaming around, you have this typical by-the-numbers possession story, so it loses that like J-horror edge that the original had to swap it out for an extremely overdone and Americanized kind of scare. And I'm just not a big fan of possession movies in the first place, and the fact that they tried to warp a Ring movie into that, it just left me feeling how I feel about most possession movies that I see, which is very meh. Like, I just don't really feel one way or the other about it. Like, I don't know if a ton of people hate this movie. Like, I know that it's not loved by any means, but I don't know if a ton of people hate it. And I don't hate it. I just think it's forgettable and by the numbers for a possession movie. Like, there's not really anything special about it other than like Samara just so happens to be in this one. One thing that I will admit though that I want to talk about is I do appreciate the attempted edge of adding that Rachel is having like hallucinations of Aiden as Samara and her struggling to be able to differentiate that and not hurt her son in moments. It just turns into the hysterical woman in horror that nobody believes when she tries to tell them like, I saw Samara, like I didn't realize it was my son, da 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 da. So it just ends up falling completely flat and on its face for me. So it ultimately doesn't work, which is kind of disappointing. But what I truly wanted to talk about in this video is the very, very strange choices they made for the final act. I loved it only for how stupid it got, because I was pretty damn bored the whole movie, minus a choice couple scenes, but then that finale kicked off and I was just kind of sitting there scratching my head like, oh, we're doing that. Okay. Because you end up having Rachel who finds out that the only way to get Samara to leave her son is if she shows Samara that she is willing to kill Aiden to get rid of her so she doesn't have a host. So she wills herself to be able to bring Aiden upstairs and tries to drown him in the bathtub. And in some extremely questionable CGI, all the water like floats up and it turns into a childlike Samara, and it looks so freaking stupid, but all the water splashes down and she goes down the drain. And then after Samara fades away, you have Rachel pulling her son from the tub and trying to resuscitate his lifeless body. I feel like if you just killed your son to try to vanquish a curse by drowning him and you were trying to resuscitate him, at least me anyways, I feel like you try to do CPR or something, like try to get that water out of him. Like, I feel like that's a thing, right? But no, apparently not, because Rachel decides to just sit there holding him in her arms like, oh, are you okay? It's fine. It's over now. The curse, it's gone. Like, you're good. But somehow this miraculously works and Aiden coughs up the water and the curse is vanquished. They're finally safe. Wrong, because this is a horror movie after all. We can't kill the killer off yet. They always come back at least one more time, and the entire house starts warping, and again, some questionable effects, but I will admit it did kind of look cool when you see the background behind Rachel warp into like this staticky, like VHS tape style. But it ultimately leads up to Rachel deciding that she's going to give herself to Samara to try to end the curse once and for all and be her mother, essentially. So she gets sucked into the TV in the videotape, and you have Rachel bottom this well, climbing out, and when she finally gets to the top, and there is no way that I could have done this video without mentioning that god-awful line that she drops before she closes the lid on Samara.
I'm not your fucking mommy.
It is such crappy dialogue, but Naomi Watts delivers it with so much conviction that it becomes instantly iconic in its own way. And if you disagree with that, I do not care, because I loved it. That's something though that just shows you why this doesn't work like a Ring movie, because that line of dialogue choice could easily fit in a Scary Movie. In fact, I'm pretty sure when they parodied The Ring in Scary Movie that they made a play on that line. And it just shows you like just how different this movie was, because it didn't have like any of those like over the top like trailer worthy dialogue moments in it, unlike this one, unless you count the like 7 days thing in the original as like something that could be used as key trailer moments, because like I feel like that's the closest you got in that movie. But still, to give some credit to this ending, because I'll give credit where credit is due, I do think that it looked really cool when you have Rachel climbing up the side of the well and Samara is climbing up behind her after her. You see her limbs like glitching as she's moving like really fast up at her, and I was watching the behind the scenes, and I think it's really cool that they actually had a contortionist doing it rather than using CGI, because there was talks of them just doing it with CG, and I am so glad they realized that was a bad choice, because judging on the other CGI in this film, it would not have looked good, and I did think that was actually genuinely creepy looking. And the fact too that she had like all that long hair and you don't actually see her face, it makes her all the more terrifying, because that's one thing that kind of ruins the scare in the original movie for me, is when you ultimately end up seeing her face. I think a horror movie villain is so much more terrifying when you can let your mind do the work for what they look like, and there's some like mystery shrouded on their looks. But to go back to the ending of the movie, we have Rachel exiting the TV and she's with her son. Samara's trapped in the well, and the movie's over, and they're both happy, and they don't have to worry about the curse anymore because they finally vanquished it. And oh, right, we still have rings to cover. Whew, almost forgot about that. My final thoughts on this movie: it just didn't really do it for me. I really didn't feel one way or the other about it. It's a very meh film. And honestly, like, sometimes that's worse for me, because I like to have a visceral reaction to a movie, whether it be good or bad. Like, make me feel something, damn it, you know what I mean? But you guys should let me know what you thought of The Ring 2. Did you like it? Hate it? Let me know in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if you're new to the channel and you want more content in the future just like this, then I'd love if you hit that subscribe button. I cover everything and anything horror here. I genuinely hope I have more of a reaction to Rings, whether it be good or bad, because I plan on covering that here real soon to finish out the American side of this franchise anyways. But anyways, with that all out of the way, this has been Justice, and I really hope to see... Do you guys hear that? This happened in the first video too. What the fuck?
that.